Today on Paralysis to Purpose.
Michael Jordan has agreed to play you one-on-one, him in a wheelchair, at his basketball camp in Lisle, Illinois. And I said, wow, when can we do this? When is this going to take place? Let's do it. And sure enough, one summer in 1987 in July, we set out for his camp.
Yeah. Here we go. You can do anything you put your mind to. What seems impossible can be done by you. It may knock you down, but don't let it stop you. Got so much to give, a lot of life to live. You must go from paralysis to purpose.
This is Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast with David Cooks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. I'm your host, David Cooks, and you know what I'm going to say it every time. I have the best job in the world because I get to sit down and have a conversation with some of the most intriguing and inspiring people in the world. And today is no exception. Born with a cured spinal condition called scoliosis, Eric Barber lost the use of his legs when he was 3 years old. He's a native of Chicago, Illinois. I won't hold that against him because I'm from Wisconsin. And dribbling and shooting a basketball in the asphalt parks of Chicago was something he grew up doing. And he was introduced to the game of wheelchair basketball by Bob Trotter. He is a 4-time Paralympian, which is amazing to me. He has his master's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, an alum like me. And he is currently working at Madison College in Madison, Wisconsin, in human resources. We're going to get into his story. He's got a lot of impactful things that happened to him. And he beat somebody pretty famous. And we're going to talk about that somewhere in our podcast today. But Eric, I would like to welcome you to Paralysis to Purpose. And I'm excited to have you here today.
Hey, I appreciate it, David. This is absolute honor and joy to be here and communicating with everybody.
Well, you know, Eric and I also have served on some civic boards together, so I've gotten to know him a little bit that way. He's a little younger than I am. I like to say I paved the way for him on the basketball court. That's probably not totally true, but I'll say that. I'll say that anyway. Hey, let's go back to the beginning. You know, I was telling you before we start recording, I knew what scoliosis is. In fact, I've got some curvature in my spine. But I didn't know what a cured spinal condition was. Could you talk a little bit about your physical challenge and what that means? Because I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, the cured piece is relatively new to me too, but basically, you know, through technology and just progression, you know, scoliosis now isn't as pronounced or isn't as threatening a condition as it once was. You know, I inherited it from my father, who he walked. And, you know, when he was diagnosed with it at a young age, you know, there were some things they were able to do for him. So his wasn't as severe as mine. Mine was pretty severe. I had like a 70+ degree curve. And when they went in for surgery when I was like 2 or 3 years old, you know, there was a possibility because of the delicate nature of the spinal cord. There could be paralysis. And so, you know, post surgery, I had very limited to no use of my legs going forward, and so just grew up learning to live with life with that condition. Just very fortunate to be from a city where, you know, the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, one of the greatest in the world, you know, kind of got me prepared in terms of how to live life every day with the no use of your legs. And so and it's been one of those things where, you know, life is life and you live through it and you go through it and you face those trials and tribulations, but be better for it at the end of the day.
Let's talk a little bit about your childhood. And it's for people who were born with physical challenges versus those like myself at age 15 had it occur. I've experienced both sides of life, the walking side and the non-walking side.
Yep.
For you, it's who you've been and what you've known. But what did you face growing up as a child, in terms of when did you really kind of start to understand that you were a little different than some of your peers, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, you know what? My family's been great. My cousins were always part of my life. I don't have any brothers and sisters, so my extended family cousins, I mean, they treated me so well to where, to your point, for most of my life, I didn't really realize I was that different because of my family not treating me different. And so being able to, when you play baseball or some of those sports out in outside, I'm crawling around in the grass. So that's a little different. But again, my cousins, they didn't treat me any different from that perspective. But you live and learn those things, and as you grow and continue to learn things and um, be a part of society, those things kind of come natural. I mean, for me personally, you know, growing up in the 70s, there's no ADA. And so going to a museum, going out to anything like that, particularly in those days when wheelchairs weighed up to 70 pounds, my mom is, God bless her, she's not she's a petite woman per se. And so to, be lugging myself and a chair around is sometimes can be difficult. And so for most of my life, my mom, in my early ages, my mom carried me, from like birth through like age 8. I barely used the wheelchair to get around. As I got, in school, I used the wheelchair in school. But, it again, growing up without the ADA and not being able to experience some things, not all entrances and exits are paved or accessible. When you have to start using some service entrance and those types of things, you start to realize, man, this is kind of different now. And so, my family treated me great, but then it was, acclimating into society and going out and doing some of those things where you start feeling like, wow, I can't go here, or I can't go there. Even into my teens, I was real kind of skeptical about going out places. Even after I got my driver's license, I was just like, can I go to this place? Is it going to be accessible? And so that was those things is what really kind of for me, made the difference in terms of view of my life and in terms of am I different? And those were the things that kind of set me apart or put it in my mind, hey, life, even though I'm able to do some things, particularly because I've gone through the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, who teaches you how to hop curbs and deal with some of those things that you're going to face in life, you still realize that, things are going to be a little bit different in terms of how you're going to have to attack life.
Mm. Yeah, I think that is a great point, because all of a sudden you hit the real world, and
Yep.
the real world is an educator in and of itself. And
Oh man, absolutely.
and like you said, it always hasn't been the way it is now. And you started off talking about how even science and medicine has changed for you and for me. There are people who have suffered the same things that we did back then that are now able to walk and do other things just because of where technology has gone. And so there's a lot that you said in that. There are three things that we kind of talk about on the podcast, and you've touched on one of them already. And we talk about perspective, we talk about perseverance, and we talk about partnerships. And I consider the fact that your family, extended and immediate, the fact that your mother carried you around, literally carried you around, is mind blowing to me. It's mind blowing. That's all I can say. I don't even, and I can talk a lot, and you kind of got me that. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
It is, and it's crazy when I think back about it too, because it was so much easier for her not to deal with a 75-pound wheelchair and just deal with a 35, 45-pound kid. I mean, I wasn't big when I was little, and so I'm still not big now, but still, back then, you got two choices. A single parent mother, you can either carry your child around and an additional, 75 to 80-pound wheelchair, or I can just deal with him. And so for, the beginning of my life, like from eight, like I said, from birth to like age 8 to 9, my mom was carrying me. I mean, literally just carrying me around. And that's how I got from point A to point B. And so, yeah, when I think back about that, I'm just like, holy cow, what a way to kind of grow up. And the look she probably got too when you're carrying a grown, shouldn't say grown, but an 8-year-old individual around, whatever. It's like, why is that kid not walking? It's because I couldn't. But again, the looks and the things that people said to her, I mean, it's unfathomable, but it's amazing.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, kudos to your mom.
Absolutely.
That's the power of love and care and doing whatever you have to make it
Yep.
work. And I think
Absolutely.
the lesson, there's so many lessons that people who have gone through adversity can teach others. But one of them I know for sure is you got to make it work some way, somehow, because you still need to go to school. You still need to go to the doctor. All the things that were necessary for your development as a child did not change because you had a physical challenge. It didn't change at all.
Exactly.
And your mom, a single mom at that, had to figure out how to nurture you and keep you going psychologically, because that was the key, so that when you did get your opportunity, you were prepared to go.
That's exactly it. Exactly it, Dave. Yep.
So let's talk about sport in your life, because you were introduced to wheelchair basketball at RIC. You talked about the Rehab Institute of Chicago, and that's when you were introduced to wheelchair basketball. What did that do for you?
Man, I tell you what, it was an absolute game changer. And to think about it, it happened by, just happenstance. So forth. But this one time I was an inpatient, and I was on the youth ward. And so I'm like the youngest one there. I'm like 9 years old or so. And most everybody is up to the age 18. And so I couldn't do much. I mean, they play cards, listen to music and what have you. And so one of my things that I like to do was just kind of like, there was like a little basketball hoop there, and I would take a little nerf ball and play with it and shoot baskets every once in a while. And then one day, one of the nurses came on onto the floor, had a Nerf football, and he zinged it across the room, and I caught it, boom, one hand, and he was like, "Holy cow!" And he walked over and he looked at it, he's like, "Look at your hands! Oh my goodness!" He's like, "You're 9 years old and your hands are like a grown man." And so he's like, "Let me try this again." He goes back, throws another ball, boom, catch that one, and so he's like, "Holy cow! You got hands, man! You got hands!" And so from that point forward, I was just like, I never really thought of myself as athletic or gifted in that sense. I mean, again, my cousins used to play baseball in the backyard, or basketball or whatever. When they would play football, I would be the quarterback, and so I never really saw myself as an athlete per se. But there's one time when this individual was just like, "Hey, we've got to get you doing something," and so it was at that point they made an appointment to take me up to the recreation floor at RIC. Never forget it, the 11th floor, and they introduced me to Bob Trotter, and he's like, "Yeah, so we got a wheelchair basketball team, and you can come on out. I'll pick you up, and take you there." And sure enough, that first one of the next Saturday in the fall, as an inpatient, he brought the little brown van around, picked me up, took me to practice. I was just like, eyes wide open and just like, holy cow. I was still pretty weak and couldn't get a ball to the hoop, couldn't even barely get it to the net. But just being out there, with these guys, these athletes, and seeing this adaptive sport for the first time and being a part of it, absolutely fell in love with it. absolutely fell in love with it. And so from that point forward, it was just something that I had to do. My mom moved to the south suburbs of Chicago, and for the first time, I was able to go out in my wheelchair with a basketball to a court and try to, try to get better. I love that game, love the game so much. I just wanted to spend as much time as I could getting better at doing it, because I was just like, I've got to get stronger because I can't get the ball to the net. And so it just became an everyday type siege that, hey, I got to get better. I want to get better. And, eventually as I got stronger, better techniques, got better with the game. And I knew that just from a recreational standpoint, I wanted more. I wanted more than just to go out and do it, around the neighborhood. I wanted to be in a more competitive environment. And so I sought out to do that. And fortunately, one of the very first junior teams and junior divisions was born in Chicago, in Illinois, Barb Bradbell. And so it all came kind of together at that point where, we've got a junior league and playing basketball competitively, and all that was coming together. And I was just like thinking to myself, like around like 86, 87, man, I want to do this, but I want to do this at the highest level. I want to, and wheelchair basketball, that's internationally playing for your country, and doing things of that nature. And so, the 88 Olympics were coming around. I didn't know how you get an invite. I didn't know how you got on the team, but I just was like, I'm going to do that someday. And I don't know if it's going to be in 88, but I want to do it because it's what I aspire to do. I've seen these individuals. I've played this sport. I think I can get there. It's going to take a lot of work to get there, but I'm up for the task. So I just continue to, try to hone those skills from, middle school through high school. And then as it came to, college, I knew that there was wheelchair basketball at the collegiate level in the country. So that was one of the things I set out to do. And being born and raised on the south side of Chicago, all I thought about was going to the University of Illinois. That's all I heard about was how good that basketball team is. And it's the premier institution for wheelchair athletics, education, and so forth. And I just had my mind set.
Your dream was no different than a lot of dreams that kids have on the playground. Your dream was the same in terms of the level that you wanted to reach to.
Right.
It just had a different path than everyone else.
Yeah, it was parallel. It's parallel to anybody else in that, from an able-bodied standpoint. Same trajectory, just a different track.
Yeah.
And so, and that was kind of how I saw it. And again, I did, I went to the courts just about every day to do it. And that was my goal. What kind of changed was I did a campus visit because I had everything set to go to University of Illinois, had my housing all set, and just on a whim decided to do a campus visit to Whitewater. I had known a couple individuals, Mel Jewett, and I think I had met back then Ben Hunter at a track and field event, and was kind of like, wow, these guys, they get it, they understand, and they're doing it. And so had those guys as, role models in essence. I tell the story before that Mel Jewett played with us on our junior team. And when he played with us on our junior team, he was okay. I mean, he had just been injured recently, but in terms of a wheelchair basketball player, of all five of us, he wasn't like top 2 or 3, but he was good. And when he went to college and he came back, that little break you get in college where you come back home for the holidays, and he came to our practice, and this man was absolutely head and shoulders better than anybody that we had at our practice. And we were like, how in like 2 to 3 months does he go from like, fourth or fifth on our roster to way above everybody in terms of his skill and ability. And I was like, there's got to be something to that place in Whitewater. I think I want to visit that place just to see what's going on, because I was just like, there's just no way that he could be that much better in 2 months. And so I paid a visit to the campus, fell in love with the campus, and basically I've been here ever since. Yeah, and lucky for me, fortunate for me, been able to meet some outstanding people, um, in that journey, that has helped me become the person I am. I mean, again, through sports, and I'll talk about this, even more so. But sports athletics, has propelled me, in my life. It crosses all sections of my life. It's helped me become a better professional, and so and vice versa. Being a professional has also helped me in my athletics, but they play a great tag team role in terms of who I am. The people I've met, the things I've done in that journey. I mean, I remember back my first game, or one of the games I played against you. Um, and you were with the Racine Breakers, and I was a freshman, and I was just so real timid, and I was lacking confidence because my shot had been falling, and I was just like, you guys were beating up on us, and I was just like, I don't know what to do on it, and my coach was on me, and I was just like, and after the game, you're like, man, I'm giving you tons of room to come down and hit a free throw shot. He's like, I'm not even looking at you. You're like, I'm playing help. I'm daring you to take that shot. And the fact that you're not taking that shot plays into our hands. We're able to guard your guys better because you're doing nothing out there. You need to be more aggressive. You need to, you need to be able to come down, hit that shot, because that's going to make it easier for your teammates. And right after that, I went back into the lab, back into the gym, and that's all I practiced. I practiced coming down, hitting that free throw shot consistently, and that led me to saying, getting that confidence, hitting that shot in games, doing it in practice, doing it in games, branching out, and then doing it from other areas of the floor. It was, again, probably a watershed moment for me from an athletic standpoint, where I took that information that you gave me, applied it to that situation, but to other situations on the floor. And then again, I do the same thing in my personal and my professional life, is that, hey, if you're going to get better and become better, there are things you got to face, that you've got to take those challenges, that feedback, and apply those things.
I don't even remember telling you that, but I believe I said it. And
Oh
it
yeah.
wasn't, and it was interesting because I had only been playing wheelchair basketball for maybe 4 or 5 years. And I started when I went to Whitewater as well. And I was a point guard, much like you.
Yep. Yep.
And I was a little timid, and I had my players have to tell me, and my coaches say, look, if you're going to be in the game, then impact the game. If
Yep.
you're going to be a part of anything, then leave your imprint and let it be something that people remember. And
Yes.
the thing that I find interesting about your story, about that story, is that you were willing to take feedback. And it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't critical, but it wasn't like, hey, you're the best player in the world or anything. It was like, look, here's some things that I think you need to work on in order for you to be great. And you took
Yes.
that in and made that work. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, I want to talk about the importance of education to you and your
Yep.
family, because we haven't talked about that. We spent a lot of time so far just on talking about sport, but you also had a vision about education and the importance of that. Where did that come from?
Yeah, and so that came from really my mom. My mom was always, top of her class, studious. She got her associate's degree in Chicago, went on to Chicago State and got her bachelor's degree. I've always admired her incredible intelligence and her embrace of education. And so it has always been there for me. And I can fully admit, when I first started my freshman year in college, I wasn't ready. Now, I say I wasn't ready. I was ready academically. I had the grades, I had the test scores, but from a mature, being able to go to class on time, do assignments on time, I really just, I wasn't ready. And it took me a while before I realized, hey, even though you got the potential, you got the skills, if you don't exercise and show and use it, it's like you don't have it at all. And so I rededicated myself to education, and I I made it a priority to be the best student, you know, develop study habits, develop a zest for, you know, knowledge, that quest for knowledge. And so, I would say around 91, 92 is when I just rededicated myself to being a better individual scholastically. And from that point, it paid off because I went on and got my bachelor's degree, took some time off and dabbled in communication, radio, TV, went back, got my master's degree in business, and and now I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, about 3 months away from getting my doctorate degree in business too. So, education has been absolutely pivotal, critical for me in my life. I mean, without it, like I say, basketball and athletics have been a great stepping stone and tool and vehicle for me, but education has been that other partnership with me.
I had no idea that you were working on your doctorate. I'm gonna
Yep.
have to. I'm gonna have to call you Dr. Eric. Are you
Yeah.
serious? I think that is fantastic. I mean, I stopped at my master's also, but that whole thing about that continuing education, that thirst for knowledge, is evident in what you just said, and you will have your doctorate. You will get that done, and then who knows what you'll do with that? I mean,
That's exactly it.
you have positioned yourself to not have a ceiling on your life. You've never mentally had a ceiling. It's always, as long as I've known you, and I am a little bit older than you. But when I first met you, I thought that the sky was literally the limit for you,
Yeah.
because you were so driven, and your work ethic, and you never quit. I mean, listeners, don't get this twisted. This dude is extremely competitive. He
Yeah.
will try. He will do whatever it takes to win that game. I saw him after his freshman year. We had some other exchanges, and you know what? He got a lot better. He talked about Melvin. I remember Melvin, and I played with Ben Hunter and those guys in college, and they made me better every day. And when you came back, I was like, oh my God, this guy's gotten a lot better. And once you get confidence, once a person is confident about who they are and what they can do, the success rate goes up.
It really does. And again, to your point, man, it comes from different origins too. Like again, it took that conversation that you and I had. Again, just having skill and ability isn't enough. You've got to have confidence, and then you got to go out and exercise that confidence and prove what there's a saying that says, "Trust your training." When you're practicing it in a gym, or you're studying it, or whatever you're doing to get to that next level to get better, trust what you're doing. You're on the right path. And then when it's time to exercise and do those things, trust what you've been doing all along and just do it. I've been very fortunate to be given those opportunities, or at least have those opportunities where I can go out and exercise. Being a multi-Paralympian is because I've had those opportunities. I still remember not making my first team, and I remember, how bummed out I was. But it was like, you could either go home and sulk about it and stop and be done, or you can go to the next level.
All right. Well, this is a great place, rather, to take a quick break. And when we come back, we want to talk about you touched on your Olympic career, which is amazing. And I think we have to talk about all of those stages of not making the team, then making the team and all that. But we want to start when we come back with something that happened when you were 16 years old.
We hope you're enjoying Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Paralysis to Purpose for more updates. Also, check out David's website at davidcookspeaks.com to learn more about his mission and purchase his book, Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose.
Let's continue our conversation and go back in time. Go back in time, because I love this story. And I think it was one of the first things I had heard about you when I was at Whitewater still, or either had just graduated. And I was like, whatever, man, this guy did not do that, whatever. And with the recent documentary on the last dance of the Chicago Bulls, your story resurfaced. And so I'm going to let you tell this story, because this is an amazing story.
Yeah, so I was 16 years old. Actually, it probably started before I was 16. There was a TV show called NBC Sports Fantasies. When I first saw it, I was like, I think I want to play wheelchair basketball against Michael Jordan in a wheelchair. And so I sat out and I sat down, wrote a letter, and tried to mail it out to NBC, and it came back letter undeliverable. I had the wrong address on it, and I was just like, what the heck? Bummed out, like big time. No Google back in those days, so I couldn't find out where does this letter go and how to get it there. And so the next season it was on again, and I said, I am going to sit and watch this show. I'm going to record it so I have everything I need to send this letter. I sent the same letter, didn't update it or anything. Same letter, different address this time. And it made its way to NBC, the executives, and I would say maybe 4, 5, 6 months later, I get a call. My mom says, "Hey, did you write NBC?" And at first I was like, "Wait, what?" NBC? And I was like, "Oh yeah, I did." They're like, "Well, they want to help you fulfill your fantasy. Michael Jordan has agreed to play you one-on-one, him in a wheelchair, at his basketball camp in Lisle, Illinois." And I said, "Wow, when can we do this? When is this going to take place? Let's do it." And sure enough, one summer in 1987 in July, we set out for his camp, met the big man, and and again, quiet as it's kept, my true fantasy was just to meet him. I just wanted to be in the same room with him. But that's not, you can't put that on TV. That's not going to sell. That's not going to get you advertising dollars, sponsorship.
That's
so
right.
I said, yeah. So I was like, yeah, let's play. And I had made up some stuff. I was like, hey, I'll even supply the wheelchair. I'll bring the refs, all this and that. And when they said yes, I was like, holy cow, I don't have another chair. But, I reached out to Bob Trotter and Larry Laviak, and they're like, yeah, Larry did the reffing and Bob supplied the chair. They got a chair that was somewhat fit him pretty good, 6'6" man. Back in those days in a quickie, those quickies weren't made for big individuals, but we found a chair for him. And it was one of the greatest days of my life. I still remember when he first got in a chair and he was dribbling around. First thing he did or tried to do was dribble behind his back. And I was just like, holy cow, I was not expecting him to be doing those things. Because when you put an able-bodied person in a wheelchair right away, it's not a pretty sight all the time.
No, it's not.
And so he was much better at that piece than I thought he would be. And so I was a little, I was like, okay, not real concerned at that point in time. And we did an interview. They interviewed me before, and it's like, what do you expect? What do you anticipate? And I was just like, in my mind, I'm like, he's Michael Jordan and all, but he's in a wheelchair. The playing field is not even level now. I've got the advantage, you know. That's what I'm thinking in my head. And I'm trying to be careful of the words I say, but I'm just like, I'm gonna win. You know, I don't anticipate losing.
Right.
You know, he's
Why would you play?
right. He's in my arena now. So I mean, this is his camp, but this is my domain. And so I'm just like, it never really ran across my mind that I could lose, you know. And so I'm conveying all this, and then they go and tell him how confident I am and how I don't, you know, I'm gonna win this and it's gonna be relatively easy. And he comes back and he goes, "Are you serious right now? This is what you said?" And I'm just telling the truth. And so he gets back in the chair, and now he's really trying to learn the moves in the chair and take shots, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh, okay, this might be a little bit harder than I first anticipated. But I'm still thinking to myself as I'm looking at him, he still does not know how to move that chair that well. I've been in this chair 16 years. I should be okay for one day. And I got out to a good lead. It was like 14-0. I didn't really shut down the engines, but I did kind of be like, I was kind of like, whoo, okay, I think I got this now, because he still had a good shot. And one thing he figured out right away was I need to get my chair from point A to point B, which was just below the elbow and off the 45. And he was just banking shots, and I couldn't touch him. He was so, I mean, his reach is so long, his torso, his legs, everything long. There's nowhere I'm gonna block his shot. So if he could just make one or two moves, get to that 45, shoot that bank shot, he knew he was good, and he was. And he took the lead. It was like, again, 14-0. I ended up winning 20-14. So that's how good he was. That's how quickly. That's how great of an athlete he really is. He learned it in less than like an hour and a half.
That's crazy. I mean,
That's nuts,
we
right?
have both played, and I mean,
Right.
for someone who hasn't played to pick it up that quickly,
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, he found his sweet spot.
He found his sweet spot, and then he started to understand angles in terms of defense. Like, he knew, like, I would set him up, and like he sets up players, like, you know, with a jab step. I'd set him up with a head fake, get his chair turned one way, and then I'm off to the races that way, scoop layup, and there's nothing he could do about it, you know. And so he started to figure out, like, hey, I need to start cutting off angles and plan, push you out a little bit further and do some things to at least try to lessen the odds that you're going to make a shot. And so, again, that's one of the things he picked up really, really fast, that I was like, holy cow, he is absolutely, he's got this. If I'd have gave him another day or two, man, it would have been a different animal. Absolutely. But yeah, that day I look back at, and I think about, one, meeting him, the amount of success that he's had. Again, that was before any of his championships. I mean, he had gold medals from the Olympics, but that was before the Bulls were the Bulls. You mentioned The Last Dance. That was before all of that happening. And so, I like to say I put him on a great path.
That's right. And Jordan, if you're listening to this, he helped you out, and
I helped him tremendously.
I mean, I spent some time at Duke in the early '90s.
Yep.
And as I look back at that, one of the things I wish I had done was journaled more and taken more pictures and captured that moment in time.
Right.
But I wasn't in it for that. But as you get older, you start to reflect and realize, man, those are some really special times.
Yeah, and I wish I had more of that too. I mean, the jersey he signed, when the Bulls would come to Milwaukee in the 90s, I'd go and, try to see him a little bit before the game. And it's always been a good relationship in that regard, where, what I really appreciate about that time and that experience is I was able to share that with my family. So they've got memories and things to talk about, having that day where they met Michael Jordan and spent the day watching their cousin, go, face to face, toe to toe with one of the greatest ever. And so, I still have that. Again, the copy of the video of that is out there somewhere. Somebody posted it a couple months ago, and I was like, holy cow, I haven't seen that footage in forever. And so it's immortalized on video. It's not the greatest of quality, but it's out there. And so you see a 16-year-old Theo Huxtable looking kind of cat playing Michael Jordan with hair. It's really weird, but it's still fun to see.
Hey, make sure you get a copy of that. You need to
Oh,
put in that and put that in your archives.
absolutely.
Let's jump from Michael Jordan to the Olympics.
Sure.
You were in the 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012 Olympics. You talked about you didn't make the first team you tried out for.
Yeah.
But obviously you didn't stop. Take us through your experiences as a Paralympian.
Yeah, so 94 was my first tryout. And like I say, it was a great experience. And it was one that I was really, really amped for. I thought I had trained really hard to make the team in 94. And that team was a world championship team. So it was to go and play in the Gold Cup, what they consider the world championships of wheelchair basketball. And I didn't make that team, and I was really, really crushed because I thought I was ready. I thought I showed up and just in terms of the assessment, evaluations, and things of that nature, I was in the top of all players and some of the skills that I was exhibiting. It's just that again, in basketball, there's going to be casualties where not everyone's going to make the team for whatever reason, and so I was one of those casualties. And again, it was either give it up or come back harder. And so I chose to come back harder. I didn't make the next team either in 96, which was the Atlanta Paralympics. But again, it was either stop there or come back again. And so in 98, I came back again and made that team. That was a world championship team too. We went to Sydney, Australia, and we won the gold medal for the world championships in 98. Came back in 2000 for the Paralympics, which was back in Sydney, Australia. So I got this experience Sydney twice in like 4 years, and it was awesome. And we ended up winning a bronze medal in Sydney, which was special for a couple of reasons. In '96, I wasn't on that team, but the U.S. had lost to Australia in a semifinal game. But we went back to Australia, beat them in the semifinals this time, or quarterfinals, and got some redemption there. Even though we didn't get the ultimate goal, which is gold, we still were able to get a medal out of it, and it was one of the most most exciting ways to get a medal. It was within the last seconds. The video is out there too on this. In the huddle prior to the last play, Great Britain had the ball, and Frank Burns, may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He was harping, screaming at me the whole time. Don't let the guy you're guarding go and set a pick for their best guy. Deny, deny, deny. Don't let him do it. And so I'm like, okay, I won't let him do it. And the guy, we get on the floor. The guy fakes like he's going to set a pick for their best guy, Simon Munn. And I overplayed it hardcore. Like I totally fell for it, bought it. He went backdoor on me, straight to the basket. They passed the ball over me. And as I'm chasing him down now, all I'm thinking is, I'm going to foul him. I'm going to jump on this guy's back and foul him and send him to the line. Because it was probably 10 seconds left as this was happening. As I'm thinking about this and going to chase this guy down, my partner in crime, one of my best friends, Will Waller, I see him, he's guarding the guy. He comes over to help. And he, has this menacing look on his face, and he takes 2 hard pushes towards the guy. The guy throws the ball up. It hits underneath the rim. He just totally shanked it because he saw Will coming over for help. And he shanks it into the bottom of the rim, and Will grabs it. And as he's doing this, he's giving like 6, 7 elbows. And again, there's less than 10 seconds left. And I'm just screaming at him, hey, let's go, get the ball up. So I'm screaming for him to throw me the ball. He finally throws me the ball. I take one push and I just heave it to Paul Schulte. He catches it in mid stride and launches a 30-foot shot that hits nothing but the bottom of the net for us to win bronze medal. And it's like one of the most epic wins you can ever kind of imagine. And it was for the bronze medal of my first Paralympic experience. And it was, again, to say the least, one of the most great experiences I've ever had um, um, in wheelchair sports. And to have it on that stage was electric. And so that was kind of my introduction to my first Paralympics. And, the whole journey through was just about as exciting and rewarding as it could ever have been. I mean, I just absolutely, the people I've met, the cultures I've experienced, the things I've learned, again, that has stayed with me from an athletic perspective, cultural perspective. I take all those things that I've learned and I still use them today in my professional world and my personal life too. It's just, all those experiences have helped shape me and allow me to be who I am. And so wouldn't change any of those experiences for the world.
But I made a choice when I graduated from college, and we lost to University of Illinois for the NCAA championship my senior year. And I made a choice that I was just going to go to work and I was going to hang up. I still played, but not, competitively. Sure. And I was like, man, should I do the Olympics? Should I try for the Olympics? You go back and forth. And I don't regret that decision at all. How did you juggle between working? You pursued both lanes at the same time with the same amount of passion. How did you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one of the things I look back on, and I try to explain to my colleagues currently. I tell them I'm a late bloomer. I mean, there was definitely some, you can try to do it all together, but there are going to be areas where there's just no way you're going to be as good in one thing because it's an opportunity cost. But the experiences that I would have had doing those things earlier in a profession, I lack. And so, but I still have some of the theory and some of the, again, like when you work in HR, working with individuals and understanding their plight, their differences, their cultural differences, their background, and that we're all different. You have to deal with that in a team aspect. When you got 12 teammates, you got to understand what makes one person tick, what makes another person, different than the next. And so I've been able to glean some of those things and bring them over in my professional world, even though I didn't experience them as, say, some of my colleagues who have been working in the field for 20 years. I've only been in the field for 12 to 15 years. And so there is some give and take there. But, what I've managed to do is try to balance those things. And again, try to associate them together and use them where there's some cutover, where there's some similarities to say, oh, I haven't really experienced this in the professional light, but here's how I've handled it. And from an athletic perspective, here's how I handle difficult conversations with either coaches or teammates or whoever. The same perspective, mindset, strategies, tactics are similar in the professional world. And so I've been able to use those things and they've worked to this point. So I've been very fortunate to be able to assess early on that there's some overlap in skills and transferability in terms of some of those things. And so I've been blessed to, be able to use those to my advantage in both worlds.
So before we finish up, what's next?
So you know what, I don't have anything definitely planned. The getting a doctorate is to open up options and doors. I think I want to teach. I think I enjoy that. I enjoy as we talked about, the advice that you gave me back when I was a freshman on that basketball floor that day, I still share with others. You know, when I see others on my team or on other teams, that I'm like, hey, you are right there. You're on the precipice of being absolutely phenomenal. Here's what you need to do to get to that next level. And so I enjoy doing some of those things because it helps. It gives back. I mean, had you not said that to me, I don't know, you know, where I would be today.
Your story is amazing. And I've known you for a long time, but we've never really talked about any of this before. This is talked about this, and I'm inspired and impressed. Like, man, you know, I got to work a little bit harder. I got some things that I need to do. Well, if people would like to get a hold of you, Eric, how can they, if they're interested in having you come speak, or perhaps they want you to coach them in business or in athletics, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I can also be reached by my email, ebarb4@gmail.com.
So Eric Barber has been our guest today. I am excited that he was here. And so until next time, on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, I'm David Cooks, reminding you that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
Thanks for tuning in to Paralysis to Purpose. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paralysis to Purpose on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To purchase his book, visit davidcookspeaks.com. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations with David Cooks.
We're all going to start at a certain level, but there's absolutely nothing that says we can't go from there to become whatever we're supposed to become.
Next time on Paralysis to Purpose.
It's all about mindset and just understanding that life rewards those who stay strong enough, long enough.
Paralysis to purpose.